Captain pressed his scaled hands against the cold metal wall of his ship. The lights flickered above him, casting strange shadows across the broken control panels. His crew of 12 traders had been traveling through space for months, carrying goods between distant worlds. Now they were trapped on a planet where nothing lived. The ship had crashed 3 days ago. Their engines were dead and the communication system was barely working. Worse than that, the air outside their ship was poison. This world had once been home to billions of living things. Now it was empty. Not just empty, it felt hungry. It felt like death itself was watching them. "Captain," his engineer called out, her voice weak. "The life support system is failing. We have maybe 2 days of clean air left." Looked around at his crew. They were scared. They had heard stories about this part of space. Travelers called it the sector. Ships that came here never came back. Worlds that were once green and full of life became cold and dead. Something lived here that hated all living things. "Have you found anything on the scanners?" asked. "No life signs anywhere on this planet," his science officer replied. "But Captain, there are structures, big ones. They look like machines, but they're old, very old." Through the broken window of the ship could see the strange buildings in the distance. They were tall and dark, reaching up into the gray sky like fingers. Sometimes they glowed with a red light. When they did, the air around the ship felt colder. They were a peaceful people. They traded goods between worlds and never fought wars. They solved problems by talking and sharing. But here, in this dead place, there was nothing to talk to, nothing to share with, only silence and the slow death that was coming for them. "Captain," his communications officer said, "I've been listening to the radio waves from space. There are signals out there, old ones. They're playing the same message over and over." "What do they say?" The communications officer's face turned pale. "They're death messages, sir, from ships like ours, from different species. They all came here trying to help someone. They all died." Closed his eyes. He had known this might happen when they chose to travel through this sector. But they were carrying medicine to a sick world, and this was the fastest way. He had hoped the stories weren't true. "Sir, there's something else," the communications officer continued. "I found a message that's different. It's not from here. It's from another part of the galaxy, from a planet called Earth." Had heard of Earth. Every trader in the galaxy had heard whispers about the humans who lived there. Most species thought humans were crazy. They were young and didn't understand how dangerous the galaxy could be. They fought each other in wars but also saved each other in ways that made no sense. Other species said humans did stupid things like risk their lives for strangers. What does the message say? It's an old rescue mission report. The humans saved a ship full of people they had never met. They lost 3 of their own ships doing it. When asked why, they said they couldn't just leave people to die. The crew gathered around to listen as the communications officer played the message. A human voice spoke in their language, translated by their computers. "This is Captain Sarah of the Earth Defense Force. We have successfully rescued all survivors from the transport. Earth Command asks why we risked so much for strangers. My answer is simple, because they needed help." Stared at the radio. Around him, his crew was quiet. They all knew what he was thinking. "Captain, you can't be serious," his engineer said. "Earth is halfway across the galaxy. Even if humans wanted to help us, they could never get here in time." "And even if they could," his science officer added, "this sector kills everything that shows mercy. The machines here don't just destroy ships. They follow rescue fleets back to their home worlds. They teach whole species to stop caring about others." Walked to the broken window and looked out at the dead landscape. In the distance, one of the tall machines began to glow. As it did, he felt something cold touch his mind. It was like a voice that spoke without words, telling him that hope was foolish, that caring about others would only bring pain, that it was better to die alone than to let others die trying to save you. His people had learned long ago that caring for others was not weakness. It was what made life worth living. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "what are your orders?" Was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, "Send a message to Earth. Tell them where we are and what happened to us, but also tell them not to come. Tell them this place punishes anyone who shows mercy. Tell them to just remember us." "Captain, that's not what you really want to say, is it?" Smiled sadly. "No, what I want to say is please help us. But I can't ask them to die for strangers. Even humans wouldn't be that foolish." As his communications officer began preparing the message, looked out at the dead world one more time. The machines in the distance pulsed with red light. He could feel them watching, waiting. They had been here for thousands of years, turning worlds of life into worlds of death. They had taught the galaxy a terrible lesson. Caring about others was too dangerous. But somewhere across the galaxy, on a small blue planet, lived a species that had never learned that lesson. The message went out into space, carrying with it the last hope of 12 dying traders and a question that would soon test the heart of humanity itself. Admiral Sarah stood in the command center of Earth's Deep Space Defense Station, staring at the message that had just arrived from across the galaxy. The room was filled with the quiet hum of computers and the soft voices of officers working at their stations. Outside the massive windows, Earth floated in the darkness, blue and green and beautiful. "Play it again," she said to Lieutenant at the communications desk. The alien voice filled the room, speaking through their translation computers. "This is Captain of the trading vessel Starfinder. We are trapped in the sector, our ship is broken and our air is running out. We ask not for rescue, for this place punishes all who show mercy. We ask only that our story be remembered. We came here carrying medicine to the sick. We die knowing we try to help. Do not come for us. The worlds of death never show compassion to those who do." Admiral had been in the Space Force for 20 years. She had seen battles, disasters, and the worst things humans could do to each other. But she had also seen the best. She had seen human ships fly into enemy fire to save wounded soldiers. She had seen rescue teams risk everything for strangers. That was what humans did. That was who they were. "Admiral," Commander Jackson said, walking up to her with a worried look on his face, "I've been researching this sector. The reports are not good." "Tell me." 17 different rescue missions have gone into that sector over the last 500 years. None came back. The last one was the Compassion Fleet. They had 50 ships and the best technology in their part of the galaxy. They went to save refugees from a war. That was 60 years ago. No one has heard from them since. Admiral nodded. She had expected this. "What do the other species say about that sector?" "They call it cursed. They say there are machines there, older than any known civilization. These machines destroy any species that tries to help others. The galactic community has made it clear. Any nation that sends ships into the sector will be cut off from all trade and protection agreements." Before Admiral could respond, alarms began ringing throughout the station. "Admiral," Lieutenant called out, "we have incoming ships. They're not human." On the main screen, 5 large alien vessels appeared. They were sleek and silver, with designs that hurt to look at for too long. Recognized them immediately. They belonged to the Hegemony Alliance, the most powerful group of species in the galaxy. Earth was still new to galactic politics, and the Hegemony barely tolerated human presence in space. "They're requesting permission to board, Admiral." Sighed, she knew why they were here. News traveled fast in space, and the alien distress signal had probably been picked up by monitoring stations across the galaxy. "Let them come aboard." An hour later, Admiral sat across from Ambassador, a tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms. His species, had been part of the hegemony for over 1,000 years. They were known for their intelligence and their complete lack of emotion when making decisions. "Admiral," said in perfect English, "we are here because of the message you received from the sector." "I assumed you were." "You must not respond to it. Your species is young and does not understand the dangers of showing compassion in a galaxy that punishes such behavior. Leaned back in her chair. Tell me about these dangers. His four hands moved as he spoke, a sign that he was serious. The sector contains machines that are older than our oldest civilizations. They have one purpose: to eliminate species that show mercy to others. They do not simply kill rescue ships. They follow those ships home and destroy entire worlds. They have taught the galaxy a necessary lesson. Compassion is too expensive to afford. And you believe this? Admiral, my own people once sent ships to help strangers. That was 800 years ago. The machines followed our rescue fleet back to one of our colony worlds. 40 billion died in a single day. We learned our lesson. We survived because we stopped caring about the deaths of others. Commander Jackson leaned forward. So you just ignore distress calls? We investigate them, replied. If the beings in distress are valuable to us, we may assist them. But we do not risk ourselves for strangers who offer us nothing in return. This is how civilized species behave. Admiral stood up and walked to the window. Earth turned slowly below her, showing continents and oceans and clouds. Somewhere down there, in cities and towns and farms, humans were going about their lives. They were helping their neighbors, saving animals, taking care of their children, building hospitals, and doing 1,000 other things that showed they cared about life. What happens if we ignore your warning? She asked. Earth will be removed from all galactic trade agreements. No alien technology, no protection from hostile species, no access to resources from other worlds. Your species will be isolated until you learn the lesson that every other civilization has learned. Caring about strangers is a luxury the universe does not allow. Turned around to face the alien ambassador. And what happens if we go anyway? Skin turned a darker shade of gray. Then the machines will follow your ships back to Earth. They will turn your beautiful blue world into another dead rock in the sector. And the galaxy will add humans to the long list of species that were too stupid to survive. The room was quiet for a long moment. Outside, Earth continued its slow rotation, unaware that its future was being decided in this room. I need to discuss this with Earth Command, Admiral said finally. You have 12 hours, replied. After that, we will assume Earth intends to mount a rescue mission, and the isolation protocols will begin immediately. After the aliens left, sat alone in her office, reading reports about the sector. Every story was the same. Compassionate species went in and nothing came out. The galaxy had learned to stop caring because caring led to death. But as she looked out at Earth, she thought about what made humans different from every other species they had met. They hadn't learned that lesson yet. They still believed that some things were worth risking everything for. The question was, would they still believe it when the choice might doom their entire world? Captain Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the stars change color as they entered the sector. The fleet of 12 Earth Defense Force ships had been traveling for 2 weeks, leaving behind the safety of known space. Behind them, the galaxy had already begun to turn its back on humanity. Captain, Lieutenant called from her station, we're getting strange readings from the stars ahead. They're not giving off the right kind of light. Torres looked at the main screen. The stars in front of them looked dim and cold, like they were dying. Some flickered in patterns that made no sense. It was as if something was draining the life out of space itself. How long until we reach the coordinates from the alien distress signal? 6 hours, sir, but Captain, I'm picking up radio signals, old ones. They're broadcasting on repeat. Put them through the speakers. The bridge filled with voices speaking in dozens of alien languages. The ship's computers worked to translate them. This is Commander of the Mercy Fleet. We came to save refugees from the war. The machines are coming. They're in our heads telling us that caring is weakness. Don't come here. Don't make our mistake. The message cut off in static. Another voice began. Captain recording final log. We answered the distress call from our enemies, hopping to end the fighting with an act of kindness. The darkness is everywhere now. It whispers that mercy is poison. It shows us what happens to those who care too much. Our ships are breaking apart, but not from weapons. They're breaking apart from despair. A third voice, older and sadder. This is High Admiral of the Imperial Relief Force. We came to evacuate civilians from a dying world. The machines don't just kill your body, they kill your hope. They make you understand why the galaxy stopped caring about strangers. They're right, we should never have come. We should have let them die alone. Torres felt a cold weight in his chest as he listened to the messages. These weren't just the last words of dead crews. They were warnings from species that had once believed in helping others, who had learned too late that the universe punished such beliefs. "Sir," his science officer reported, "sensors are detecting artificial structures ahead. They're massive." The main screen changed to show what was coming toward them. Floating in space were machines the size of small moons. They were dark and angular, covered in towers and spikes that pulsed with red light. As the human fleet approached, the machines began to move, turning to face them like predators noticing prey. "Captain," the communications officer called out, her voice shaking, "we're receiving a transmission from those machines. It's not in any language. It's going directly into our minds." Torres felt it then. A voice that spoke without words, cold and ancient and certain. It filled his thoughts with images of dead worlds and empty space. It showed him the remains of rescue fleets, their ships twisted into shapes of suffering. It told him that mercy was a disease that the galaxy had learned to cure. "All ships," Torres spoke into his communicator, trying to keep his voice steady, "maintain formation. Do not let those thoughts control you. Remember why we're here." But even as he spoke, he could feel the weight of what the machines were showing him. They had been here for thousands of years, watching species arrive with hope and kindness, then watching them die. They had seen the best intentions of 100 civilizations turn to ash and regret. "Captain," came the voice of Admiral from the command ship Humanity's Hope, "we're approaching the planet where they are trapped, but something's wrong. The planet itself looks sick." Torres looked at the world below them. It had once been green and blue like Earth, but now it was gray and brown. The oceans looked like oil, and the land was covered with the same angular machines they had seen in space. The atmosphere was thick with dark clouds that moved in unnatural patterns. "Sir," his science officer reported, "I'm detecting life signs on the surface. 12 of them very weak. That must be the alien traders, but there's something else. The machines on the planet's surface are activating. They're all pointing toward our fleet." Suddenly, 3 of the machines in space fired beams of dark energy at the human ships. The beams didn't destroy the ships they hit. Instead, they made them wrong. Torres watched in horror as the UES Courage began to change shape, its metal hull twisting into forms that hurt to look at. The crew's voices came through the radio, but they weren't screaming in pain. They were screaming in despair. "This is Captain Williams of the Courage." The voice was barely recognizable. "They're not killing us, they're showing us the truth. They're showing us what we really are: selfish, cruel. We only pretend to care about others. We only came here to feel good about ourselves. The galaxy is right to ignore suffering. The galaxy is right to—" The transmission cut off as the Courage disappeared into the darkness between the machines. "All ships pull back," Admiral ordered. "Maintain distance from those energy beams." But the machines weren't finished with their lesson. New transmissions began broadcasting to the human fleet. These weren't from the machines themselves. They were from the ships that had come here to rescue others, playing their final moments over and over again. Torres listened as brave crews from a dozen species slowly gave up hope. He heard their final decisions to abandon the people they had come to save. He heard them agree that mercy was too expensive, that caring was too dangerous, that the universe was better off without compassion. "Captain," his communications officer said, tears in her eyes, "the machines are sending us a message. They're offering us a deal." "What kind of deal?" "They say if we leave now and forget about the trapped aliens, they won't follow us home. They'll let humanity continue to exist. But if we try to rescue those people, they'll teach Earth the same lesson they've taught every other world that thought it could care about strangers." Tors looked around his bridge at his crew. They were scared, but they were still here. They were still human. "What does Admiral say?" "She says we didn't come this far to turn back now. She says they are counting on us." The machines around them pulsed brighter, and Tors felt their cold thoughts pressing against his mind again. They were offering him something that the galaxy had found irresistible, the safety that came from not caring, the peace that came from ignoring the suffering of others, the survival that came from learning that mercy was a luxury only the dead could afford. But as he looked at the gray world below, where 12 alien traders waited to die alone, Tors made the choice that would define not just his mission, but the future of humanity itself. "All ships," he spoke into his communicator, "prepare for planetary descent. We're going to get our people." In the darkness around them, the ancient machines began to sing a song of ending, preparing to teach humanity what every other species in the galaxy had learned, that showing compassion would only lead to pain. The human landing craft touched down on the dead world's surface with a sound like breaking glass. Captain Tors stepped out first, his boots crunching on ground that looked like burned sand mixed with metal pieces. The air was thick and red, and breathing it felt like drowning in rust. "Stay close," he told his team. "According to the scanners, the alien ship is 2 kilometers that way." Sergeant Maria Santos checked her weapon and looked around at the landscape. Strange towers rose from the ground like twisted trees, all of them humming with the same red energy they had seen on the machines in space. Between the towers, the ground was covered with the remains of other ships, not just recent crashes, but vessels that looked like they had been here for centuries. "Captain," Santos said, "those aren't all rescue ships. Some of these wrecks look like passenger vessels, like civilian ships." Tors examined the nearest wreckage. The metal was covered with strange marks, as if something had tried to write a message in the hull itself. As he looked closer, he realized the marks were words in a language his helmet computer could translate. "We came here to be safe. We came here to hide from war. But safety that requires others to suffer is not safety at all." "Sir," came the voice of Dr. Elizabeth Park from the medical team, "these readings don't make sense. According to my instruments, some of these ships crashed here last week. Others crashed here 1,000 years ago, but they all look the same age." Before Tors could respond, his communicator crackled with Admiral's voice. "All ground teams, be advised. The machines in space are moving. They're surrounding our fleet. We're getting a new transmission." Tors looked up at the dark sky and saw the massive machines repositioning themselves around the human ships. They moved slowly, like judges taking their places for a trial. The transmission came through his helmet radio, but like before, it wasn't really sound. It was thoughts placed directly into his mind. This time, the ancient voice was clearer. "Humans of Earth, you have seen the wreckage of mercy. You have heard the final words of the compassionate. We offer you one last chance to choose wisdom over folly." In his mind, Tors saw images of Earth. His home planet looked beautiful and peaceful, surrounded by the darkness of space. Then the image changed. He saw Earth covered with the same twisted towers that were on this world. He saw the blue oceans turned red and the green forests burned to ash. "You may save these 12 aliens," the voice continued, "but in doing so, you doom 40 billion humans. We will follow your ships home. We will teach your species the lesson that every other species has learned. We will show you that caring for others brings only death." Tors shook his head to clear the visions and focused on the mission. "Team, move out. We have people to save." They found the alien ship half buried in a crater. The hull was cracked, and emergency lights flickered weakly through the broken windows. Inside, 12 huddled together, their breathing shallow in the thin air that remained in their life support system. Captain looked up as the humans entered his ship. His large eyes widened in surprise. "You came," he whispered. "We told you not to come." "We don't abandon people," Torres replied, kneeling beside the alien captain. "Can you walk?" "Some of us, others are too weak." His voice was filled with sadness. "Human, you do not understand what you have done. The machines will destroy your world because of this choice. They will make your people pay for showing mercy to strangers." Dr. Park was already working on the weakest, giving them medicine and oxygen. "We'll worry about that later," she said. "Right now, let's focus on getting everyone out of here." As they helped the aliens to the landing craft, Torres noticed that Sergeant Santos had wandered away from the group. She was standing near some ruins that looked different from the machine towers. These looked older and more natural, like they had been built by living beings rather than constructed by mechanical intelligence. "Santos, what did you find?" "Captain, you need to see this." She was standing in front of a wall covered with writing in dozens of different alien languages. "My helmet computer is translating all of this. It's like a history written by the people who lived here before the machines came." Torres joined her and read the translated text. "We were the architects of compassion. We built these worlds as refuges for those fleeing war and disaster. We welcomed all species. We shared our knowledge freely. We believed that mercy was the highest virtue." The writing continued, "But we were not the first to believe this. Before us came the harvesters, a species of great technological power. They too believed in helping others. They too welcomed strangers. They built machines to serve all life." Santos pointed to another section of the wall. "Look at this part, Captain." Then came the Great Dying, a wave of death that swept across the galaxy, destroying billions of worlds. The harvesters faced a choice: save themselves or save others. They chose to save themselves. They programmed their machines to protect them by eliminating anything that might threaten their survival, including their own capacity for mercy. Torres felt his blood turn cold as he read the final lines. The harvesters live still, but they are no longer truly alive. They have become their machines, searching for what they gave up. They test each new species that shows compassion, hopping to find a way to remember what mercy feels like. But they destroy what they seek to understand, because they have forgotten that mercy cannot be taken by force. "Captain," Dr. Park called out, "we need to go. The aliens are loaded into the craft, but I'm picking up movement from those towers. Something's coming." As they ran back to their landing craft, Torres saw them. From the base of each tower, figures were emerging. They looked like the machines they had seen in space, but smaller and more detailed. As they got closer, Torres realized with horror that they weren't entirely mechanical. They were beings that had been partially converted into machines, their organic parts fused with metal and circuits. "Those are the harvesters," he breathed into his communicator. "They're not just machines, they used to be a living species." The figures moved toward the humans with mechanical precision, but their faces, what remained of their original faces, showed something that looked like desperate hunger. They were reaching out with metal hands, making sounds that might once have been words. As the landing craft lifted off, Torres watched the harvesters below grow smaller. Through his communicator, he could hear Admiral coordinating the fleet's escape from the planet. But he knew it was too late. The choice had been made. "All ships," came a new transmission, this one from the largest machine in space. "You have chosen to save 12 lives at the cost of billions. We will now follow you home to complete your education. Your species will learn what every other species has learned, that mercy is a luxury only the dead can afford." But as Torres looked at the rescued in the back of the craft, he saw something in their eyes that he hadn't seen in any of the final transmissions from other rescue missions. It wasn't despair or regret. It was gratitude and hope. Captain reached out with a weak hand and touched Tor's arm. "Thank you," he whispered. "Whatever happens next, thank you for proving that some beings in this universe still choose to care." Tors looked out at the fleet of human ships, surrounded now by the ancient machines of the harvesters. The price of being human was about to be paid in full. But as he watched his people preparing for whatever was coming, he realized that some prices were worth paying, no matter how high they were. The human fleet traveled through space for 3 days with the harvester machines following behind them like a funeral procession. Admiral stood on the bridge of humanity's hope, watching the dark shapes that never fell behind and never got closer. They were waiting for something, and she knew what it was. They were waiting to see Earth. "Admiral," Lieutenant reported, "we're receiving communications from Earth Command. They want to know our status." "Tell them we have successfully rescued the," replied. "Tell them we're coming home." "Should I mention the machines following us?" Looked at the display showing Earth still days away, her beautiful blue world that had never learned to stop caring about others. Not yet. Let them have a few more days of hope. In the medical bay, Dr. Park was taking care of the rescued. Captain was the strongest of the survivors, and he spent his time talking with the human crew members. What surprised the humans was that he didn't seem afraid of the machines following them. Instead, he seemed deeply sad. "Dr. Park," said as she checked his vital signs, "may I ask you something about your species?" "Of course." "Why did you come for us? Your people knew the cost. They knew that saving us would bring death to your world. Why did they choose our lives over their own safety?" Dr. Park was quiet for a moment. "Because that's what humans do. We can't just watch people suffer when we have the power to help them. It doesn't matter if they're strangers or even enemies. If someone needs help, we help them. Even when it costs everything. Especially when it costs everything. That's when helping others matters most." His large eyes filled with tears. "The galaxy has lost something precious, hasn't it? We've all learned to calculate the cost of mercy. We've all learned to choose safety over compassion. But humans never learned that lesson." On the bridge, Captain Tors was studying the data they had gathered about the harvesters. What he was learning made his head spin with possibilities and questions. "Admiral," he said "I think I understand what the harvesters are really doing. They're not just testing species for compassion. They're trying to learn how to feel it again themselves." "Explain." "Look at this." Tors brought up the scans from the planet's surface. Every species they've encountered, they've forced to make the same choice, save others or save themselves. And every species chooses to save themselves. But the harvesters keep hopping someone will make a different choice. They're looking for teachers, realized. They want someone to show them how to care again. But they destroy anyone who tries to teach them, because they can't understand that mercy can't be forced or stolen. It has to be given freely. Stared at the machines following them. For thousands of years, they had been searching for something they had voluntarily given up. They had become so focused on finding mercy that they had forgotten how to recognize it when they saw it. "Lieutenant said, open a channel to the lead harvester machine." "Admiral, I'm not sure that's wise." "Do it." The main screen filled with the image of the largest machine. As they watched, part of its hull opened to reveal the being inside. It was clear that it had once been alive, but now most of its body was metal and circuits. Only its eyes remained organic, and they held a pain that was older than human civilization. "We follow you home now," it said, its voice a mixture of biological sounds and mechanical tones. "We will teach your species the lesson we have taught all others. We will show them that mercy brings only death." Admiral stepped forward. "Before you do that, I want to ask you something. What was your species called before you became machines?" The being's organic eyes flickered with what might have been surprise. We were healers. We traveled the galaxy helping others. We built hospitals on dying worlds and shared our medicine freely." What happened to you? The Great Dying came, a plague that could kill entire star systems. We had a choice: use our technology to save ourselves or use it to save others. We chose ourselves. We programmed our machines to keep us alive at any cost. We gave up our ability to care so that we could survive. And now you search for what you lost. Yes, for thousands of years we have tested species after species, hoping one would show us how to feel mercy again. But they all choose survival over compassion. They all prove that we made the right choice. Nodded slowly, but we didn't. No, you chose to save strangers at the cost of your own world. This makes you fools, not teachers. Maybe, said, but before you destroy Earth, I want to give you something. We do not require gifts from the soon-to-be dead. Not a gift, forgiveness. The word seemed to hit the harvester like a physical blow. The machine systems flickered and sparked. What did you say? I forgive you, repeated. For all the species you've killed, for all the worlds you've destroyed, for all the compassion you've eliminated from the galaxy. I understand why you did it. You were afraid. You were alone. You made a choice that seemed necessary at the time. I forgive you for that choice, and I forgive you for everything that came after. The harvester's organic eyes widened. Around them, the other machines began to slow down, their formations becoming less precise. You forgive us, but we are going to destroy your world. We are going to kill everyone you love. I know, said simply, and I forgive you for that too, because I understand that you're not really evil. You're just lost. You've been searching for mercy for so long that you forgot what it looks like when you find it. The machine was silent for a long moment. Then other voices began to join the communication, other harvesters from other machines. Their combined voices created a sound like wind through broken metal. No one has ever forgiven us. Every species we have tested has cursed us as they died. They have called us monsters and murderers. But you offer forgiveness to those who are about to kill you. That's what mercy is, explained. It's not just helping people who deserve it. It's caring about people even when they don't deserve it, even when they hurt you, even when they're going to kill you. Captain Torres watched as something incredible began to happen. The harvester machines were slowing down. Their formation was breaking apart. Through the ship's sensors, he could detect massive power fluctuations in their systems. Admiral, he called out, their machines are shutting down, all of them. On the main screen, the lead harvester's mechanical body was sparking and failing, but its organic eyes were brighter than they had been before. We understand now, it said, its voice becoming more biological and less mechanical with each word. Mercy is not something to be harvested. It is something to be given. We have spent thousands of years trying to take by force what can only be offered freely. The machine systems continued to fail, but the being inside seemed more alive than it had been in. Human, we cannot undo what we have done. We cannot bring back the species we have destroyed, but we can do one thing. What's that? We can choose to die as ourselves, rather than live as machines. We can choose mercy one last time. Across the fleet, the harvester machines began to power down completely. Their massive hulls cracked open like seeds, releasing the beings inside into space. As they died, they transmitted one final message across the galaxy. It went out to every world, every species, every civilization that had learned to ignore the suffering of others. This is the final transmission of the once called the harvesters. We have learned that mercy cannot be taken, only given. We have learned that compassion cannot be harvested, only offered freely. The humans have taught us what we spent thousands of years searching for, that true strength lies not in the power to destroy, but in the courage to forgive. Let all species know, mercy is not weakness. Mercy is what makes life worth living. Admiral watched as the last of the machines went dark. Around her, the human fleet continued toward Earth. Behind them, the empty shells of the harvesters drifted in space like monuments to a lesson finally learned. When they reached Earth, They found the galactic community waiting for them. But instead of punishment, they brought questions. Species from across the galaxy wanted to understand how humans had succeeded where everyone else had failed. They wanted to learn how to care again. Captain, now recovered enough to stand, joined Admiral on the bridge as Earth grew larger on the screen. "What will you tell them?" he asked. "What will you teach the galaxy?" Smiled as she looked at her home world. "The same thing we've always known, that some things are worth any price, that mercy is not a luxury but a necessity, and that the universe is not a darker place because we choose to help each other, it's a brighter place because we refuse to stop trying." The galaxy would never be the same. The lesson of the harvesters spread to every world, and slowly, carefully, species began to remember what they had forgotten. They began to answer distress calls again. They began to help strangers again. They began to care again. And at the center of it all was a small blue planet, whose people had never learned to stop being human.